Rose's face lit up with joy. I'm so excited. This is going to be great. I'll make sure I look my best. I want to impress him, Kelvin. The excitement bubbled in her chest as she prepared for the dinner, eager to win over the powerful billionaire who had been the cornerstone of Kelvin's life and success. The air was thick with excitement as Rose prepared herself for the dinner with Kelvin's father, the great Chief Stanley Okonkwo. The room was filled with the soft rustling of fabric as Rose moved about her apartment, checking herself in the mirror. The day had finally arrived, the day she would meet the man she'd only heard of in whispers, the billionaire who had built an empire. But more importantly, she was about to introduce herself as the fiancée of his only son. Rose's heart raced as she stared at herself in the full-length mirror. Her reflection stared back at her, a woman of beauty and elegance, draped in her finest clothes, her hair styled to perfection. She had made it. This moment, she knew, was her ticket into the world she had always dreamed of, a world of luxury, power, and respect. But there was something else weighing heavily on her mind, the red heels. Kelvin had given her the instructions the previous evening. I bought these red heels for you to wear for dinner, Rose, he had said, his voice soft but filled with care. My father loves red heels. He used to buy them for my mother when they were still together. I know you don't have any, and I want to make a good impression. Rose had nodded at the time, grateful for the gift, though she didn't love the color or the design. But what choice did she have? This was her chance to prove herself. She quickly slipped on the red heels, despite the discomfort they brought. The heels were a bright red, flashy, almost too bold for her taste, but she couldn't let that show. She was about to meet Chief Stanley Okonkwo, and she would do anything to fit into his world. As she stood up, feeling the awkward pinch in her feet, she reminded herself that this was a small price to pay for a life of wealth and status. She was ready. Rose was almost ready to leave when she noticed something strange. One of the heels was starting to feel loose. As she descended the stairs in a hurry to leave, her heart skipped a beat. As Rose stepped down the stairs, feeling confident in her new attire, disaster struck. The left heel of the red shoe detached completely, and with a sharp lurch, Rose found herself teetering dangerously. She reached out to steady herself, her hand gripping the railing, but as she did, the other heel gave way. Both shoes had fallen apart, and Rose was left standing, frustrated and trembling with anger. No, 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 she muttered under her breath, looking at the now-defunct heels in despair. Her heart sank. She had no time to fix this. For a moment, she just stood there, staring at the shoes, seething with frustration. This was not how the evening was supposed to go. She had to meet Chief Stanley. She had to make a good impression. But now, her outfit was ruined. Her evening was slipping through her fingers. Panic gripped her chest. She glanced around, wondering if there was anything she could do to salvage the situation. Then, as if a light bulb had gone off in her mind, she remembered seeing a shoemaker outside her office just a few days ago. It was a small, humble man sitting by the gate, repairing shoes. She had barely paid him any attention, but now, desperate and running out of options, she grabbed her car keys and sped off, her heart racing with every passing second. Unbeknownst to Rose, the man she was about to confront was none other than Chief Stanley himself, who had taken matters into his own hands. He had watched her from a distance, observing her behavior, and now he was ready for the final test. Chief Stanley, sitting outside his humble disguise, watched with quiet satisfaction as Rose drove toward him. The old man smiled to himself. The plan was working perfectly. His disguise had been a success. She had no idea that the beggar in front of her was the man she was about to meet for dinner. His heart raced with anticipation as he waited for her to arrive. Rose pulled up to the curb in front of him, her eyes scanning the street for any sign of the shoemaker. She had no idea that this was the man she was about to insult. Chief Stanley, still pretending to be the poor beggar, waited patiently as Rose approached him. She stepped out of her car, clearly flustered. As she handed him the broken shoes, her voice was laced with frustration. "Can you fix this, quickly? I have an important dinner to attend," she demanded, her words harsh. With a slight bow of his head, Chief Stanley took the shoes from her, carefully inspecting them. "Don't worry, my pikin," he said, his voice warm and comforting. "I will fix them. You can wear them and even run a 100-meter race in them." Rose, still unaware of the man before her, nodded and walked back to her car, desperate to get to the dinner. She was so caught up in the evening's plans that she didn't notice the small smile on Chief Stanley's face as he handed her the fixed shoes. Rose hurried back to her apartment, trying to fix herself up. She rushed inside, slipping the now-repaired red heels back on, her heart pounding with anxiety. She was so close to the dinner, to meeting Chief Stanley, to winning his approval. But fate had other plans. Kelvin had arrived to pick her up, but Rose couldn't help feeling something was wrong. As she walked out of her apartment, her mind preoccupied with the dinner and the importance of the evening, she took her first few steps toward the gate, and suddenly, both heels gave way once more. The shoes collapsed, the soles coming off entirely, leaving Rose stumbling forward in utter disbelief. "Not again," she cried out, her face flushed with embarrassment and frustration. Before she could catch herself, she fell hard to the ground, her clothes scraping against the rough pavement. Kelvin rushed over to her, his concern evident. "Rose, are you okay?" But Rose, now boiling with rage and humiliation, pushed him away. "This is ridiculous," she shouted. "I'll never forgive that useless shoemaker. I will make sure he knows what he's done to me." Her anger was palpable, her face contorted with frustration and shame. Kelvin, though concerned, hesitated. He knew his father would be upset by her outburst, but this was something deeper, something that had clearly triggered all her insecurities. "I think we should see a doctor," Kelvin suggested gently. "We can skip the dinner, and I'll explain it all to my father." But Rose, consumed by her anger and pride, shook her head. "No. I'm going to that shoemaker. I'll make sure he fixes what he's done to me." Kelvin, though confused, reluctantly agreed to take her there. As they arrived, Rose stormed out of the car, her heels clicking against the pavement, her frustration growing with every step. Chief Stanley, who had been quietly observing from a distance, saw Rose approach him. He had prepared himself for this moment, though he still couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness as he watched her march towards him, her anger evident in every step. Rose didn't waste a second. Without thinking, she stormed up to Chief Stanley, her fury burning bright. "You," she shouted. "You think you can fix shoes for me and humiliate me like this?" Before Chief Stanley could even speak, Rose slapped him across the face, her slap loud enough for everyone around to hear. The crowd that had gathered gasped in shock, watching as the woman, who had once seemed so graceful, unleashed her rage on the old man. "You old fool!" Rose continued, her voice shaking with fury. "How dare you spoil my shoes? You've ruined everything. Can your entire generation afford such a shoe? Are you this stupid?" The crowd watched in stunned silence, and even Kelvin stood frozen, his face filled with disbelief and horror. "I'm sorry, my pikin," Chief Stanley said, his voice calm despite the slap. "I didn't mean for this to happen." But Rose was too far gone in her anger. "Sorry for yourself. You've ruined my night, and I'll make sure you pay for this. I'll tell everyone how you embarrassed me." As the old man was trying to explain, another hot slap landed his face. Without another word, she turned on her heel and walked away, as if she were a senator's wife, too proud to acknowledge the damage she had just caused. The dinner that had seemed so promising now felt like a distant dream. The dining table was grand, the candlelight casting a warm glow over the sparkling glasses and expensive dishes. Rose, her once confident demeanor now faltering, sat across from Kelvin and his father. The luxury around her felt like a hollow echo of what could have been. As the evening progressed, Rose couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was wrong. She couldn't stop glancing at Chief Stanley, and yet she couldn't place why he looked so familiar. His face, though aged, held an air of quiet authority, and there was something about his presence that stirred an uncomfortable feeling in her chest. Her mind raced. She had seen him before, but where? The tension in the room was palpable. Rose could feel it in the air, thick and suffocating. She smiled, but the gesture didn't reach her eyes. The grandness of the dinner, the fine china, the luxurious setting, all of it felt like a dream she was no longer a part of. Every glance she stole toward Chief Stanley felt like a piece of an unfinished puzzle, but her mind couldn't make the connection. Finally, Kelvin, sensing the strange energy between them, broke the silence. "Babe, you've been staring at my dad all night. What's going on? Do you know him from somewhere?" Rose's stomach churned as she hesitated, trying to put the pieces together. But before she could form a response, Kelvin turned toward his father. "Dad, do you know my woman? She's been acting like she's seen you before. Or is there something I don't know?" Chief Stanley smiled, his eyes twinkling with wisdom that only came from years of life experience. "No, son. I've been away for many years now. It's not possible that we've met before. Time changes many things." Rose's heartbeat quickened. The familiar feeling only grew stronger. Had she seen him before? She couldn't understand why her mind kept coming back to the old man she had insulted outside her office gate 2 days ago. But then, as if Kelvin had spoken the words she needed to hear, he asked again, his voice quiet but direct. "Babe, do you remember the poor shoemaker you slapped 2 days ago for not fixing your shoes properly?" That was the moment it all hit her, a gut-wrenching, horrifying realization that left her breathless. The memories of that fateful encounter, the angry slap, the humiliation, the reckless disdain she had shown, flooded her mind. The truth crushed her. The man she had belittled, humiliated, and slapped in front of everyone was sitting right across from her at that very table. It was Chief Stanley. Sitting right in front of her, but this time, not as a poor hungry shoemaker anymore, but as the one and only Chief Stanley Okonkwo I, the oil and gas lord. The shock hit her like a tidal wave, too overwhelming to comprehend. Her hands shook, and her vision blurred as the pieces of the puzzle fell into place. Her heart raced wildly in her chest, pounding painfully against her ribs as the weight of her actions crashed down on her. It was Chief Stanley, her soon-to-be father-in-law, the very man she had been trying so desperately to impress. The man she had so arrogantly dismissed and slapped in front of an audience. She had slapped him. The realization set her heart on fire, the shame curling in her stomach like a heavy stone. Everything in her body screamed for escape, but there was nowhere to go. There was no hiding from the truth. Her breath caught in her throat, and before she knew it, she was on the floor. Her knees buckled, and she crumpled to the ground, her eyes wide with horror, her face flushed with humiliation. Tears streamed down her face as she struggled to find words, to say anything that could fix what she had just realized. "I'm so sorry," her voice cracked as she looked up at Chief Stanley, her words barely audible, suffocated by the suffocating weight of regret. "I didn't know. I didn't know it was you." The sobs that followed were uncontrollable. She could feel her body shaking, her chest heaving with each breath, the reality of her actions suffocating her in the dining room. Her world had been shattered in an instant, and she was now drowning in the consequences. Kelvin was frozen, his eyes wide with disbelief. He had never seen Rose like this, had never imagined that the woman he loved could be so reckless, so blinded by her own arrogance. The disappointment hit him hard, harder than anything he had felt before. "Rose," he whispered, stepping toward her. His voice was heavy, thick with the weight of his emotions. "How could you? Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you? I'm so sorry. Please, I didn't know. I didn't know." Rose cried, her words desperate, her face red from crying. She reached out, trembling, as if to grasp onto some shred of hope, but her hands fell limply at her sides. Kelvin stood still, staring at her in silence, trying to process the chaos in front of him. How could this happen? How could Rose treat his father, his family, and even his workers like that? Chief Stanley, though deeply hurt, kept his composure, his voice steady but filled with disappointment. His eyes never wavered from Rose, who was now kneeling on the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. The truth of her actions had hit her like a freight train, and she couldn't escape it. The weight of the consequences was crushing her, and for the first time, she felt the true depth of her mistakes. "You have failed the test, Rose," Chief Stanley said softly, yet firmly, his voice calm but filled with a quiet authority. "You treated me like dirt when I was disguised, and now you see the consequences of your actions. But what you didn't realize, my dear, is that your treatment of others has been a pattern. It's not just me you've hurt. You've treated your workers badly, Rose," Chief Stanley continued, his voice growing sterner. "You've dismissed them, belittled them, and used your position to demand respect as if it were owed to you, when you gave none in return. The way you treated the elderly gatekeeper, slapping him just because he was a few seconds late, that was unforgivable." Rose flinched at the mention of the gatekeeper, the memory of her actions making her stomach turn. She had thought nothing of it at the time, but now, it was clear that the man she had humiliated had been a reflection of the power she thought she wielded over everyone. "You insulted people who were beneath you, acting as though your money and status made you untouchable. But you've learned now, haven't you?" Chief Stanley's words hit Rose like 1,000 needles, each one puncturing the pride she had built up over the years. "You've lost your job," Chief Stanley said, his voice softening just a little. "Effective immediately, you are no longer the manager of my company. That position is gone. And as for your future here, well, you have a choice to make." Rose's eyes widened, her chest tightening in panic. "What do you mean?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Chief Stanley looked at her with calm, unwavering eyes. "You can step down from your position and take on a more humble role. You can become an ordinary cleaner in the company, and maybe that will teach you the value of respect, humility, and hard work. Or, you can leave entirely, never to return." Rose's heart shattered as she heard the words leave his mouth. She had worked so hard to get to where she was, to build a life of luxury and respect, only to have it all stripped away. The thought of being reduced to a cleaner, someone she had once looked down on, was unbearable. But leaving the company completely, that was a blow she wasn't sure she could survive. She opened her mouth to protest, to plead, but no words came out. Her mind was spinning, the reality of her situation sinking in. The man who had once been so kind to her, the man she had tried to impress with her beauty and ambition, was now offering her the most humbling choice of her life. "Make your choice, Rose," Chief Stanley said, his voice no longer full of anger, but a resigned sadness. "Your actions have consequences, and you must live with them. But know this, you've already lost my respect. The question is whether or not you will learn from this, or if you will walk away, continuing to believe that the world owes you something." Rose sank further into her despair, the weight of the world pressing down on her shoulders. The dream she had built, the dream of marrying into wealth, of living a life of luxury and status, had shattered in an instant. She had not just lost her job, she had lost her dignity, her respect, and any hope of the future she had envisioned. Kelvin, having witnessed everything from the doorway, stood frozen in shock. His face, once filled with love for Rose, was now hardened by disappointment. He had hoped she would learn, hoped that she would change, but now, all he felt was the painful truth that the woman he had loved was not who he thought she was. "I can't believe this," Kelvin said, his voice tight with emotion. I need to process this." He looked back at Rose, his heart breaking. "I don't know who you are anymore." His words struck Rose like a dagger. She had lost him, too. The man she had believed would always stand by her was walking away, his back turned as he headed for the door. "Kelvin, please," Rose cried, her voice hoarse as she reached out to him, but it was no use. He didn't turn back. The sound of the door clicking shut echoed in her ears, a painful reminder that she had driven him away with her arrogance and pride. The room fell silent, the weight of the consequences pressing heavily on Rose's chest. She was alone now. Alone with the wreckage of her own choices. As Rose continued to sob on the floor, Chief Stanley stood up and made his way toward the door. His words lingered in the air, a reminder of the test that had exposed Rose's true character. "You have lost everything, Rose. And now, the choice is yours. Learn from this, or continue down the same path. But know this, there are no second chances for people like you." The door closed behind him with a soft click, leaving Rose alone in the dining room, her heart heavy with the weight of her own failure. The days that followed felt like a blur. Rose had no idea how to face Kelvin, how to look him in the eye after what she had done. She had destroyed everything in an instant, a job, a relationship, her dignity. The weight of it crushed her. The company that she had worked so hard for, Kelvin's empire, had no place for someone like her anymore. She was fired the very next day. The workers who had once respected her now looked at her with disdain. The luxury, the power, the position she had fought so hard for, it was all gone. As for her relationship with Kelvin, what was left of it? He had been her anchor, her ticket to the life she had dreamed of, and now, she had lost him too. He refused to speak to her, and when she tried to apologize, he only turned away, his heart close to her. Rose found herself standing at the edge of the life she had once known, watching as everything fell apart around her. The mansion, the luxury, the respect, all of it slipped through her fingers like sand. She had sacrificed her integrity for wealth, for status, and now it had cost her everything. There were no second chances. The words Kelvin had said, the disappointment in his eyes, haunted her every waking moment. The guilt consumed her, and she knew she had no one to blame but herself. In the quiet of her empty apartment, as she sat alone on the couch, Rose realized the full weight of her actions. She had turned into someone she didn't recognize, someone who had lost sight of what truly mattered. And now, as the silence stretched on, she knew she had lost not just her job, her wealth, and her relationship, she had lost herself. Thank you for watching this story. Kindly share your thoughts in the comment section, give this story a thumbs up, and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our next story. Thank you, and remain blessed.